This is the entire Jujutsu Kaisen timeline, and today I'll explain all of it in chronological order. This story spans over 2,000 years, starting when Japan was just a collection of tribes and ending with literal aliens in the future. So let's start at the beginning. The Yayoi period, 300 BCE to 300 CE. Believe it or not, the Jujutsu Kaisen lore actually starts during the Yayoi period, which was basically when Japan started figuring out how to become a proper civilization. This was also the era of the Civil War of Wa, which is a real historical event and not something the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen made up. However, one thing he did make up is that the Kamo clan was present during this chaos. At one point, a guy named 𝗬𝗲𝗏 came along, and don't ask me where he came from since this name is definitely not Japanese. Anyway, the only thing we know about 𝗬𝗏 is the fact that he defeated the Kamo clan and pretty much conquered the whole country during this period. The Kamo clan weren't exactly pushovers even back then, so the fact that 𝗬𝗏 beat them anyway tells you a lot about how strong this guy was. The only thing we know about 𝗬𝗏's abilities is that he had some Shikigami under his control. The Nara period, 710 to 794. Okay, moving forward almost 1,000 years, and Japan has already changed quite a bit. Buddhism also went from being a niche religion to something that was shaping basically every part of Japanese life, and Tengen was right there in the middle of it. For now, all you should know about Tengen is that she was a woman from the Nara period whose curse technique granted her immortality. Anyway, about 1,300 years before the main story, Tengen was one of the people spreading Buddhism across Japan, and she even used it to lay down the foundations of Jujutsu society. Every rule, institution, and piece of social structure that the sorcerers in the modern story take for granted, Tengen built all those centuries ago. She was so prolific that people even created a cult centered around her called the Time Vessel Association. Now, before we continue with some of the most interesting parts of the timeline, I want to tell you guys about Webnovel, the sponsor of today's video. Webnovel is an app where you can read a bunch of novels and comics for free. The one I want to recommend today is called Others Summon Dragons, I Summon Legendary Knights. This story follows a boy named Godfrey, who's mocked for only being able to summon a single knight while others are able to summon beasts like dragons or wolves. So his classmates immediately assume his summon is useless and start mocking him. However, he soon surprises everyone when his knight starts defeating much stronger beasts. From there, Godfrey keeps evolving, summoning an entire golden order of knights and reshaping the balance of power in the world. Godfrey also has a mysterious summon gate inside his soul. Each time he levels up, a new gate unlocks and reveals another knight he can summon. The symbols on the gates hint at which knight will appear next, making it really interesting to see which legendary knight he'll unlock in the future. It's a unique underdog story where the main character starts weak but slowly surprises everyone and grows insanely strong. If you like stories like Solo Leveling, you should definitely check this one out. And if you prefer comics, I also recommend Astral Pet Store and Tales of Demons and Gods, which are currently trending on the app. Click my link in the description to download the Webnovel app now and use my code Jaeger for 20% off for 48 hours. The Heian era, 794 to 1185. The next period of JJK history I need to tell you guys about is the Heian era. You probably already heard about this period 1,000 times since literally every character in the story keeps mentioning it. And it's for a good reason, because this period was considered the golden age of Jujutsu. It was also when samurai culture quietly began emerging in the background, because the nobility's grip on power was starting to slip. Although not confirmed, it's likely that during this time many sorcerers were hired by various Japanese lords to fight in wars or keep the peace. But here's where things get really interesting. In real Japanese history, there's 3 figures known as the 3 Great Onryo, which basically translates to the 3 greatest vengeful spirits. These were real powerful political figures whose deaths were believed to have caused actual natural disasters. Gege took those 3 real people and turned them into JJK's 3 vengeful spirits, which is exactly the kind of move you'd expect from a series that loves pulling directly from mythology and history. One of them was Michizane Sugawara. He was one of the most brilliant scholars and politicians of the entire Heian period. He served the emperor loyally, but eventually got tricked by a rival clan and then died in exile. Natural disasters started piling up in the capital immediately after his death, and the imperial court eventually made him into a god of learning just to calm his spirit down. So why is this guy important? Well, it's because in JJK he was the head of the Gojo clan, meaning yes, Satoru Gojo's entire family line traces back to this guy. At some point during this era, an unknown woman was pregnant with twins. One of those twins was Ryomen Sukuna, who decided before he was even born that he wasn't sharing anything with anyone. So he ate his twin brother while they were still in the womb. Sukuna was based on the real historical Japanese figure Ryomen Sukuna, although there aren't many similarities between them. Even though it isn't confirmed exactly when this next event happened, it's likely that at some point during this era, a sorcerer named Kenjaku was born. He had the ability to transplant his brain into other bodies, essentially allowing him to live forever as long as he kept switching hosts. Remember this guy, because both he and his curse technique will play a huge role in the Jujutsu Kaisen story. Moving on, around the year 1006, Tengen merged with a star plasma vessel. This basically is a process where Tengen has to merge with someone compatible every 500 years or so in order to stop herself from evolving into something unrecognizable. This is the same process Gojo and Geto were overseeing during Season 2 when they were supposed to deliver Riko to Tengen. The fact that this cycle had already been running for over a millennium by the time the main story starts puts into perspective just how long Tengen's been holding everything together. Then in the year 1017, the prison realm was created after a monk named Genshin died and his remains became a cursed object. Soon after, Sukuna started becoming famous due to his strength and quickly got recognized as the strongest sorcerer of the Heian era. Around the same time, another sorcerer named Angel tried to kill Sukuna but failed. Given that Angel was absurdly powerful, this failure tells you everything you need to know about Sukuna's true strength. Not long after that, Sukuna found 𝐸𝐸 wandering somewhere in the wilderness and asked him to become his personal chef. Because, of course, that's how that relationship started. You see, Sukuna apparently loved eating human flesh, and as you would expect, it wasn't easy to find a chef specializing in that. Also, 𝐸𝐸 had the ice formation curse technique, which probably allowed him to keep the meat frozen so it wouldn't spoil. Anyway, on the political side of things, a sorcerer named Yorozu went on to defeat the 5 Void Generals, who were basically the 5 strongest members of the Fujiwara clan, and claimed a seat of power in the capital for herself. By the way, the Fujiwara clan was likely the strongest sorcerer clan during this period, which makes this feat even more impressive. The clan's Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, along with the 5 new generals who replaced the ones Yorozu killed, all ended up dying to Sukuna eventually, because that was just what happened to people who got in his way during this period. Around this time, Yorozu became completely obsessed with Sukuna after seeing him in person during a festival. She felt that Sukuna's unparalleled strength made him lonely, and she jumped to embrace him. Big mistake, because Sukuna instantly slashed her with his technique for doing something that stupid. Somewhere in the middle of all this, a sorcerer named Saratsune Ashiya created the simple domain technique. His motivation for this was straightforward. He just wanted to give his students and followers a fighting chance against opponents who would otherwise completely overwhelm them. Good guy, honestly. After terrorizing the Heian era for years, Sukuna eventually withdrew from society and slowly started to look less and less human. At this time, Sukuna became more of a mythical figure than a real person, which is how he eventually got the title King of Curses. During the Heian era, a school built around Tengen's teachings was established in Kyoto. This was the same school that would eventually become Jujutsu High in the future. With this, the groundwork for the entire modern sorcerer world was now basically in place. Now, before we move on to the next period of the Jujutsu Kaisen history, there's one important thing I need to mention. Remember that Kenjaku guy? Yeah? Well, Kenjaku made secret binding vows with many of the most powerful sorcerers of this era. Basically, Kenjaku looked for sorcerers who wanted to be reincarnated in the future. Some simply wanted to live again, while others wanted to test themselves against the strongest sorcerers of the future. Whatever the case, Kenjaku offered to turn these sorcerers into cursed objects upon their deaths and promised to reincarnate them when the time came. Although we don't know exactly how many sorcerers he made deals with, we do know he made deals with Yorozu, 𝐸𝐸, Uro, Angel, and even the King of Curses himself, Ryomen Sukuna. Oh, and he also made a deal with Juve, the guy mentioned at the beginning of the video, but exactly when that happened isn't known. The Sengoku era, 1467 to 1615. The Sengoku period kicked off almost 400 years after the Heian era ended. During this era, Japan was in a constant cycle of political chaos, military conflict, and clans fighting each other over land and power. Not a great time to be alive, generally speaking. Sometime during this era, Kenjaku killed a Gojo clan baby who had just been born with the 6 eyes, along with the star plasma vessel that always appears alongside a 6 eyes user. This was a calculated move by him to test fate and stop Tengen from absorbing the vessel. However, only 40 years later, another 6 eyes child was born along with a new star plasma vessel. This is when Kenjaku realized that killing a 6 eyes user doesn't lead to anything, so he was forced to come up with a new plan to achieve his goals. This is why he started his search for the prison realm, hoping to trap the next 6 eyes user within it instead of killing them. He thought that this would prevent a new one from being born down the line. The Keicho era, 1596 to 1615. During the Keicho era, the Six Eyes and Limitless technique user from the previous generation eventually grew up and became the head of the Gojo clan. Eventually, he got pulled in front of the clan elites to fight on behalf of his family's honor against another clan. He died in that fight, and the person who killed him was a 10 Shadows user from the Zenin clan. Although we don't know for sure, the Zenin clan member probably used Mahoraga to do it. The 10 Shadows user also wound up dying too, which makes sense given everything we later learn about what Mahoraga does to people who summon it. The Edo period. 1603 to 1868. The Edo period was a long stretch of relative calm in Japan. It was a quieter era on the surface, but underneath it, Kenjaku was as busy as ever. Sensing that fate was going to keep producing Six Eyes users to oppose him no matter what he did, Kenjaku started making very long-term preparations. During this era, he continued his plans of making binding vows with powerful sorcerers that would let them reincarnate later. One of those sorcerers was Hajime Kashimo, who was considered the strongest sorcerer alive at the time. Kashimo was the type of guy who loved the thrill of the fight, but just couldn't find anyone strong enough to oppose him. So when Kenjaku offered him a binding vow that would let him eventually face off against Sukuna after both of them were reincarnated, Kashimo took the deal immediately. After that, a sorcerer named Ryu Ishigori stepped into the role of the strongest sorcerer around. However, after some time, he also made the exact same deal with Kenjaku for probably the exact same reason. In the end, they were both looking for a worthy opponent, willing to wait as long as it took to find one. The Meiji era, 1868 to 1912. At some point during the Meiji era, Tengen moved alongside the royal family to Tokyo and extended their barrier over the imperial palace to protect the emperor's family directly. Around the same time, Kenjaku took over the body of a man named Noritoshi Kamo and started one of the most disturbing experiments in the history of the JJK world. Basically, Kenjaku found a woman with the ability to give birth to cursed spirits. Then, through experiments, he made her pregnant 9 times, which eventually led to the creation of 9 cursed womb death paintings. These beings are basically something between humans and curses. This led to Noritoshi Kamo being considered the most evil sorcerer ever, and he became a stain on the Kamo clan. Nobody knew that it was actually Kenjaku doing all of this, not Noritoshi. Oh, and the death paintings were seized by Jujutsu High at some point and ended up in their warehouse. The modern era. The first annual Jujutsu Goodwill event took place in 1988. Over the next several years, some of the most important characters in the entire series were born, like Geto, Gojo, and Kinji, to name a few. While all of that was quietly happening, Kenjaku took over the body of a woman named Kaori Itadori and started making preparations for the final stages of his plan. Meanwhile, a guy named Toji Fujiguro had completely gotten fed up with the Zenin clan and everything they stood for, so he cut his ties with them and built himself a new life as a bounty hunter working for the criminal underworld. At some point, he had a son named Megumi, and he agreed to sell the kid to the Zenin family for 10 million yen. Very normal parenting decisions all around. Anyway, Geto eventually joined Tokyo Jujutsu High, and things moved pretty quietly for a while. Then in 2003, Kenjaku gave birth to a baby while in Kaori's body. And yep, this baby was Yuji Itadori. Now you're probably wondering why Kenjaku even did something like this. Well, you see, the man Kenjaku had a child with was Jin Itadori, who was actually the reincarnation of the twin brother Sukuna ate while they were both still in the womb. Yuji's entire existence, as far as Kenjaku was concerned, was to become the perfect vessel for Sukuna. Jin eventually disappeared, and Yuji wound up moving to live with his grandfather. Then, in 2005, Gojo was allowed to enroll at Jujutsu High after going through a formal ceremony where he acknowledged his duties as an adult and as a representative of the Gojo family. He and Geto slowly started becoming friends while studying alongside Meimei, Utahime, Shoko, and Yuki. By the end of their first year in 2006, Gojo and Geto were already considered the 2 strongest sorcerers in the country. At one point, they got sent on a mission to pull Utahime and Meimei out of a cursed mansion and handled it without too much trouble. Then they got tasked with something much bigger. It was a mission to escort a girl named Riko Amanai, the new star plasma vessel, and make sure she's safely merged with Tengen. So, Gojo and Geto started with their mission, with everything going mostly according to plan. However, on day 3, things got completely out of control. This is because Toji Fujiguro managed to seriously wound Gojo using his cursed tools, while Geto was escorting Riko to Master Tengen. Unfortunately, Riko was soon killed by Toji as well. Geto got beaten up badly too, and it was the first time Japan's 2 top sorcerers were defeated by someone. Toji then ran into a freshly awakened Gojo shortly after, and, well, that's the last thing that ever happened to him. Meanwhile, Riko's death hit Geto in a way nothing else had before. It was the moment he started genuinely questioning everything he believed about non-sorcerers and the kind of world they were all living in. The following year, in 2007, 𝐿 was officially recognized as the strongest sorcerer of the modern era. Meanwhile, Geto and Yuki sat down and had a serious conversation about whether it was even possible to completely get rid of curses from the world. A month after that meeting, Geto got sent on a solo mission to a village where he found two young sorcerers being brutally treated by villagers. Already broken from what happened to Riko, Geto lost it and ended up killing all 112 residents of the village. Within a few days, a report about the incident was filed and Geto was declared a curse user sentenced to execution for what he'd done. He disappeared before anyone could get to him and started quietly taking over the Time Vessel Association from the shadows. In 2009, Gojo and Shoko graduated from Jujutsu High. That same year, Gojo met a 6-year-old Megumi for the first time. Meanwhile, Yuki took Todo under her wing after she found him beating up a bully while he was still in 3rd grade. In 2011, Yuta's childhood friend Rika was in a car accident. She died, and Yuta unknowingly turned her into a cursed spirit through the strength of his grief, binding her to him without realizing what he was doing. The next year, in 2012, Kenjaku finally got hold of the prison realm after searching for it for centuries. 4 years later, in 2016, Gojo got word of Yuta's situation and started looking into it. In 2017, Kenjaku finally kicked off his century-long plan and started slowly bringing sorcerers from the past back into the world. Yuta started his first year at Jujutsu High the same year and went on to single-handedly win the 29th Goodwill event. Shortly after that, Geto finally came out of hiding after years of working in the shadows. On Christmas Eve 2017, Geto launched the Night Parade of 100 Demons, an all-out assault on the Jujutsu world. Yuta was forced to fight against him and managed to finally free Rika from her curse. Gojo then soon arrived and finally put an end to his old friend. However, the moment the dust settled, Kenjaku slipped into Geto's body after seeing the potential of his curse technique. 3 months later, in 2018, Yuta got recognized as a special grade sorcerer. Gojo also brought in a man named Miguel as an ally for the Japanese sorcerers. The month after that, Yuta got sent to Africa on a mission with Miguel to train and hunt down more of the cursed item called Black Rope. Meanwhile, Kenjaku got in touch with Mahito and the rest of the disaster curses and started pulling them into his plans. During this time, he also quietly marked specific people across Japan to serve as vessels for the sorcerers he made deals with in the past. That same year, Yuji ate one of Sukuna's cursed fingers and immediately became everyone's problem. After a quick confrontation with Megumi and Gojo while Sukuna was in control, he was brought in to be executed at Jujutsu High. However, Gojo offered him a deal instead. Yuji was to become a sorcerer and eat all of Sukuna's fingers, or he could die. Yuji thought about it and eventually agreed to it. He then joined Jujutsu High and spent the next 2 weeks training alongside Megumi and Nobata. Around the same time, Mahito reached out to a Kyoto high school student named Kokichi, and the two of them made a binding vow. Kokichi was supposed to give Mahito information about Jujutsu High and their plans, while Mahito promised to heal Kokichi's body in return. At some point, Kenjaku fed one of Sukuna's fingers to a cursed spirit and turned it into a cursed womb. In July, Yuji, Megumi, and Nobata got sent out on their first real mission together to deal with it. Yuji fought the finger bearer and ultimately stood no chance against it, so he made a deal with Sukuna to take over his body and finish the fight for him. This went according to plan up until Sukuna just ripped out Yuji's heart the moment the battle was done. I guess that's what happens when you trust an ancient evil sorcerer. The next day, the second year started getting ready for the Goodwill event while Yuji was suddenly brought back to life by Sukuna. Gojo then trained Yuji in secret while everyone else, including his own classmates, thought he was dead. Over the following weeks, Yuji was pushed hard by Gojo to become stronger and even witnessed the battle between him and Jogo. While all this was happening, Kenjaku was putting together a plan to invade Jujutsu High and had started getting everything ready with the disaster curses. 𝐿𝐴 was among the first ancient sorcerers brought back by Kenjaku and was recruited to help with the plan to revive Sukuna. Kenjaku also got the floor plans and inside information on Jujutsu High from Kokichi. Yeah, this guy was always a few steps ahead. I guess that's expected when you've been alive for over 1,000 years. About a month later, right before Gojo left to check on Yuta in Africa, he handed Yuji off to Nanami. Nanami and Yuji got sent on a mission together where they had to fight a bunch of transfigured humans in the cinema. Nanami eventually tracked down where Mahito was hiding while Yuji spent his time getting to know a boy named Junpei and figuring out what was going on with him. The next day, Yuji and Junpei hung out. That same night, Mahito planted one of Sukuna's fingers inside Junpei's house. This led to a cursed spirit attacking the house and Junpei's mom dying shortly after. The following morning, Junpei tried to go kill the bully he blamed for everything, but Yuji stopped him before he could. Yuji had started to genuinely care for Junpei at this point, which made the fact that Mahito killed the boy soon after even worse. Yuji and Nanami then fought Mahito, but unfortunately couldn't defeat him. Soon, Gojo came back from Africa and the sister school Goodwill event started.
Yuji officially rejoined Jujutsu High during this time, with everyone learning he was still alive. While the students were fighting each other, a curtain suddenly dropped over the whole venue and Kenjaku's plan was put into motion. Yuji and Todo met for the first time during this event, and Yuji started getting a crash course in proper fighting right in the middle of an actual battle. Then Hanami showed up and interrupted everything. While Hanami was keeping Yuji and Todo busy, Gojo broke through the barrier and started taking out curse users one by one. Yuji matched Nanami's record of 4 consecutive black flashes and helped Todo take down Hanami. While all of that was happening, Mahito slipped inside the school without anyone noticing and walked out with 6 of Sukuna's fingers and 3 of the Curse Wound death paintings that Jujutsu High added in their storage. After a day of rest, the Goodwill event picked back up and the students played a game of baseball together. Yep, turns out there's more to JJK than fighting. Shortly after the Kyoto Goodwill event, Kenjaku started bringing the death paintings he stole from Jujutsu High back to life. Meanwhile, Yuji's team was sent to investigate Yasuhachi Bridge after some weird things happened around it. There, they ran into a fully revived 𝐿𝐸 and 𝐸𝐸, 2 of the death paintings. Yuji and Obata fought them and eventually killed them both. At the same time, Kokichi also quietly changed some records to send most of his teammates, everyone except Todo and Arata, off on a completely fake mission far away from where things were actually about to go down. 2 days later, Gojo came back and sat down with Urahime to talk about the possibility of a traitor being inside Jujutsu High. Meanwhile, Kokichi was healed by Mahito as promised for all that information he had been leaking. However, as soon as the boy was healed, Mahito attacked him and the two engaged in battle. Kokichi knew this was a battle he couldn't win, and his only goal was to somehow contact Gojo and inform him about the situation. Sadly, he wasn't able to do that because Kenjaku's barrier cut off the signal. He was then killed by Mahito shortly after. Jujutsu High eventually realized who the traitor was, and Yuji's team was sent on a secret mission to confront Kokichi directly. However, Kokichi was already killed by the time they arrived, so all they could do was go back to Jujutsu High and report the news. A few days later, a massive curtain dropped over all of Shibuya, trapping many regular people inside. This happened exactly on Halloween, October 31st. So, many Jujutsu sorcerers gathered outside while Gojo was the only one who went in. At the same time, another curtain opened up at Meiji Jingu Mae's station, so Yuji, Meimei, and Yui got sent over there to handle it. While Yuji was dealing with a grasshopper curse, Mahito transfigured a car full of people and sent it rolling into the underground station where Gojo was. Meanwhile, Gojo already had his hands full dealing with Jogo, Hanami, and Choso all at once. Outside the curtain, Jujutsu High managers were getting killed off one by Haruta, a curse user working for Kenjaku.
Back in the station, the car full of transfigured humans eventually forced Gojo to use his domain to wipe them all out. However, just as he finished doing that, Kenjaku appeared right in front of him in Geto's body. Confused at seeing his old friend again, Gojo was stunned, which allowed Kenjaku to open the prison realm and seal him within it. And just like that, the strongest sorcerer in the world was gone. At this point, everything was going according to Kenjaku's plan, and the curses soon split up to cause some more chaos. Jogo went looking for Yuji to feed him some more of Sukuna's fingers, while Choso and Mahito teamed up to kill Yuji before Jogo could get to him. A few battles happened after that. Nanami dealt with Haruta, Yuji and Megumi fought Ogami's group, while Meimei handled Niji on the other side of the battlefield. During the chaos, Granny Ogami, one of the curse users working for Kenjaku, temporarily reincarnated Toji Fushiguro with her curse technique. Yuji and Megumi then split up, with Yuji getting jumped by Choso soon after. Yuji lost that fight, but got spared by Choso since the latter suddenly saw memories of him and Yuji being brothers. You see, since Choso is a death painting made by Kenjaku, and Kenjaku is also technically Yuji's mom, it kinda makes the two half-brothers, or at least that's what Choso believed. Anyway, on the other side of the station, Maki, Naobito, and Nanami had their hands full dealing with Dagon. When things got bad enough, Megumi jumped in to help Nanami's group escape Dagon's domain, but unexpectedly, Toji appeared on the battlefield as well. Toji defeated Dagon with ease and then forced Megumi back outside. Just as the sorcerers thought they had finally won, Jogo appeared out of nowhere and burned Maki, Nanami, and Naobito with his fire abilities. He killed Naobito on the spot, while Nanami and Maki survived with terrible injuries. Jogo then found Yuji getting fed a Sukuna finger by Nanako and Minako, and then personally shoved 10 more down his throat to push the total to 15. This finally let Sukuna take control over Yuji's body. After killing Nanako and Minako, Sukuna challenged Jogo to hit him at least once and started tearing Shibuya apart in the process. Urame soon showed up as well to greet his old master. Outside, Megumi's fight with Toji ended with Toji taking himself out after recognizing that Megumi is his own son. Soon after this, Megumi was found by Haruta. Gravely injured, Megumi had to summon Maharaga as a last-ditch effort. Around the same time, Sukuna finished Jogo off and quickly rushed to where Megumi was. He then engaged in battle against Mahoraga and burned most of Shibuya to ash to get around Mahoraga's ability to adapt. Hundreds of civilians died, but Sukuna was victorious. He then dropped Megumi off and gave control of the body back to Yuji. Yuji soon woke up and saw what Sukuna had done using his body. Going back into the station, Yuji found Anami walking around in a daze after suffering injuries from Jogo prior. But before Yuji could do anything, Mahito crept up behind him and killed him with idle transfiguration. This enraged Yuji, and he went after Mahito in pure anger. They eventually wound up near Nobata's location where Mahito managed to touch her. Nobata's eye exploded and she seemingly died on the spot. Yuji completely fell apart after this, but Todo and Arata showed up just in time. Yuji and Todo then teamed up to defeat Mahito while Arata tried to heal Nobata. After a crazy fight and Mahito transforming into his new form, Yuji finally managed to take him down. It's here that Kenjaku stepped out of the shadows, and instead of helping his ally, he absorbed Mahito using his abilities. Miwa, Mai, Kusakabe, Panda, Kamo, and Choso all jumped in to fight Kenjaku, but Urame showed up to defend him. Yuki then arrived as well to balance the scales. But before anyone could do anything, Kenjaku revealed his real plan and used Mahito's curse technique to remotely alter the brains of the people he had marked in the past, turning those people into sorcerers. With this, he also initiated the reincarnation of all the ancient sorcerers he had made deals with throughout his life. Millions of curses then got unleashed across Japan all at once as Kenjaku simply walked away. Yeah, it was an absolutely brutal night from start to finish. A few days after the Shibuya incident, Yuta came back to Japan. Considering that Gojo was gone, the Jujutsu higher-ups decided that Yaga, Kenjaku, and Yuji all needed to be executed. Maki, Megumi, and Toge got some time to recover from everything while Yuta worked out a plan to fake Yuji's execution and buy everyone more time. Meanwhile, Kenjaku and Urame paid a visit to the White House to pitch the idea of using Jujutsu sorcerers as energy sources to the American president. Just a normal Tuesday for Kenjaku. Anyway, with Naobito dead, Megumi got chosen as the next head of the Zenin clan, which immediately made Naoyo, Naobito's son, extremely angry. So he decided to hunt Yuji down as a way to get to Megumi. Meanwhile, Yuji and Choso spent their days tracking down every cursed spirit still loose in Tokyo, which was Yuji's way of trying to make up for what Sukuna did during Shibuya. Elsewhere, the Culling Game players were starting to wake up to their abilities. Noritoshi Kamo also figured out that Kenjaku had become the head of the Kamo clan, which meant he had been kicked out of his own family by an imposter. Yuta eventually found Yuji, and Naoya arrived at the same time. Choso then fought Naoya and won, while Yuta pretended to kill Yuji by stabbing him through the heart. Yuji soon woke up next to a campfire with Choso, Megumi, and Yuta all sitting around him. The fake execution had worked. The group then went back to Jujutsu High to plan things out with Maki and Yuki. Yuki then took them all down to the Tomb of the Star Corridor to meet Tengen in person. In exchange for leaving Choso and Yuki behind to protect Tengen, they explained how Gojo could be unsealed and laid out exactly what Kenjaku was planning to do with the Culling Game. Basically, Kenjaku's plan is to force the evolution of humanity by merging the Japanese population with Master Tengen. He created the Culling Game in order to gather massive amounts of cursed energy through death matches to make his idea possible. Anyway, while all that was happening, Yaga got executed for refusing to share the secret behind his corpse puppet technique. The next day, Yuta decided to join the Culling Games and see what was going on inside the barriers. Meanwhile, Yuji and Megumi went off to find Hikari, an insanely strong sorcerer who could potentially help them stop Kenjaku's plans. Yuji gained access to Hikari's fight club and fought his way through every match until he earned a meeting with Hikari. Although it wasn't going according to plan at first, Hikari eventually decided to help him. Meanwhile, inside the barriers of the Culling Game, a lawyer named Higuruma had already killed 20 other players like it was nothing. Reincarnated Kashimo was also dominating the game, killing over 30 players already. Yuta was putting in work too, fighting characters like Juve, Kurorushi, Uro, and Ryu. Yuji and Megumi soon joined the game, with Panda and Hikari coming in behind them shortly after. Things started moving fast from here. Yuji ran into Higuruma and had a fight with him. Megumi engaged Regi's star group, while Panda and Hikari were having a rough time trying to handle Kashimo on their end of the map. While all that was going on in the colonies, Mai Zenin was taken hostage by her father. Maki soon found her trapped and badly hurt. After losing a quick fight with her father, both Maki and Mai got thrown into a room full of cursed spirits to die in. In that moment, Mai gave up her life to give Maki a power boost and created a special curse tool for her. Without her twin, Maki lost every bit of cursed energy she had and became incredibly strong.
comparable to Toji Fushiguro. She used the sword Mai created and killed her father. Then she proceeded to wipe out the entire Zenin clan. Inside the barriers, Yuji and Higuruma had settled things between them. Yuta finished his battles and had 200 points, and Megumi beat Reggie Star's whole group. Meanwhile, Maki met up with Momo, and since she had no cursed energy at all, she could walk into the Culling Game colonies without being counted as a player. She soon met up with Noritoshi, and together they dealt with Naoya's cursed spirit. On November 14th, a group of American soldiers invaded one of the colonies at night and died almost immediately, which pushed the cursed energy levels of the whole colony way up. Then on the 16th, Kenjaku defeated Yuki and Choso and finally absorbed Tengen. The plan that had been running for over 1,000 years was now almost complete. Back in the colonies, the sorcerers all got together and agreed on a rule that would let anyone leave the Culling Game freely as long as they could provide a substitute. Megumi used his points to try and free his sister, but then found that her body had already been taken over by Yorozo, one of the ancient sorcerers. Sukuna immediately saw his opening, took over Megumi's body, and beat down Yuji and Maki like it was nothing. Yorozu tracked Sukuna down not long after, but he easily defeated her as well. 3 days later, the sorcerers finally pulled Gojo out of the prison realm with Angel's help. Gojo immediately tried killing Kenjaku, but Sukuna intervened. Urame tried to attack Gojo, but got absolutely destroyed with a single attack. Gojo then told Sukuna that they should postpone their fight until December 24th, as both of them had some things to do before that. In preparation for their final fight against Sukuna, Yuji ate the rest of the death paintings to get stronger. He also trained his innate technique with Choso while working on his simple domain with Kusakabe. On the other hand, Sukuna ate all but one of his fingers to get himself as close to full power as possible. Nobata had nearly finished healing from everything that happened in Shibuya during this time as well, and got filled in on the plan to deal with Sukuna. By this point, Sukuna had essentially broken Megumi's spirit completely. With Megumi gone mentally, Sukuna had full access to this 10 Shadows technique and all the Shikigami that came with it, which, on top of his own curse technique, made him the most dangerous character in the story. The sorcerers knew that they were massively outmatched, and all they could do now was rely on Gojo. Soon, December 24th arrived, and the fight between Gojo and Sukuna took place at Shinjuku. Gojo went in with everything he had: Infinity, the Unlimited Void, red, blue, purple, everything. Sukuna countered with Malevolent Shrine, his slashing techniques, the 10 Shadows, and Maharaga. During this fight, both sorcerers were pushing the boundaries of what was even possible in the JJK world. They manipulated their domains in ways we never even knew were possible, healed from any injuries, and even regenerated their burned out curse techniques. Sukuna was also using the Shikigami Agito, which was the Shikigami created by merging a couple of other Shikigami from the 10 Shadows technique. Gojo pushed back and went as hard as he had ever gone, and there were moments where it looked like he might actually win. He even landed a clean hollow purple on Sukuna, which almost took him out of the fight. However, Sukuna had one more trick up his sleeve: Maharaga. You see, the key problem for Gojo was that Maharaga kept adapting to his Infinity. Every time Gojo used Infinity to defend himself, Maharaga observed it, processed it, and got slightly better at dealing with it. Sukuna understood exactly what was happening and used everything Maharaga learned to his advantage. So in the end, Sukuna adjusted his slash based on what Maharaga would have learned. It was a slash that could literally cut through space itself rather than just the physical object in front of it. To Gojo's surprise, the hit landed and Gojo got cut in half. Obviously, this was a shock for everyone present. Well, everyone besides Kashimo, who just waited for the opportunity to challenge Sukuna himself. So Kashimo showed up right after that to fight him. His wish to fight the strongest finally came true, but it also led to his death shortly after. With Gojo and Kashimo both gone, the remaining sorcerers had to figure out what to do. This is where things got really creative in terms of strategy, because everyone knew fighting Sukuna head-on is a losing battle. So the goal shifted to finding any possible angle that could turn things around. Iguruma stepped up during this part too. His judgment put Sukuna on trial and found him guilty, which led to Sukuna losing his cursed tool. Choso soon joined the fight as well and poured everything he had into protecting Yuji. His blood manipulation technique was pushed to its absolute limits during the Shinjuku battle, and he died during the fight. Ryu also joined the fight and used his Granite Blast technique to shoot out an endless beam of raw cursed energy. It contributed to wearing Sukuna down over the course of the battle, but he eventually died too. While all this was happening, Yuta was busy tracking down Kenjaku. He eventually found him and managed to finally get rid of the ancient sorcerer. Yuta then quickly joined the fight against Sukuna, but even with him on the battlefield, they just couldn't bring this monster down. Yuta suffered a fatal injury soon after. He was on the verge of dying and the situation looked completely hopeless for a moment. While Yuta was down, Maki and the others stepped up and kept Sukuna busy, buying just enough time for things to turn around. Meanwhile, 𝐂𝐤𝐤 kept using his teleportation technique to remove everyone injured or dead from the battlefield. This bought enough time for Yuta to pull off the move that changed everything. Using Kenjaku's body hopping technique he copied, Yuta managed to implant his brain into Gojo's lifeless body. He then appeared on the battlefield once again, completely surprising Sukuna. The two engaged in an epic battle once again, with Yuta even using Gojo's domain expansion. However, even this wasn't enough. It was only when Yuji released his domain expansion for the first time that it was finally over for the King of Curses. Inside his domain, Yuji gave Sukuna one final chance to resolve the situation peacefully. Sukuna obviously refused, which led to Nobara using her resonance technique on Sukuna's last finger. This locked Sukuna in place, which allowed Yuji to land one final black flash on him, instantly ending the battle. Megumi got his body back after this, same as Yuta. Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, 2024 to 2086. Around 5 years after the Shinjuku showdown, in 2024, Japan signed something called the Kyoto Paranormal Resolution, which pushed Japan into a more isolated and nationalistic direction. Yuji also found out that he couldn't age at the same rate as the people around him and started pulling back from normal life after witnessing many of his friends slowly dying. Yuta and Maki became a couple somewhere in between all of that, and in 2031, their son Iori was born. At some point, Tori married a girl named Mifuyu, and together they had 2 children, Yuka and Tsurugi. Tsurugi was born with a heavenly restriction, which led to him having low cursed energy in exchange for superhuman physical gifts. Around 2070, Tori disappeared with no explanation. In 2074, on a planet called Simuria, a group called the 𝐷𝗲𝗏 forced another group, Rumel, into isolation. They used the Rumelian religion as an excuse for this, while actually being after the Mole Quarry. Now, Mole is basically this special ore that's considered a very valuable resource on Simuria. Meanwhile, 2 years after this on Earth, Yuta gave Yuka his ring. Maki passed away from old age a bit after that in 2079. Yuta passed away a year after that as well, with his ring being given to Tsurugi instead. Back on Simuria in 2084, a man named Dura was forced into a duel against his best friend Dabura just as relations between the Rumel and the 𝐷𝗲𝗏 had started improving. Dura lost his life in this battle. After his death, the situation on Simuria deteriorated even further, and the Simurians eventually left the planet that same year. Also, another thing you need to know about are the Kalyans. These are basically immortal beasts sacred to the Rumel tribe, but hostile to others on the planet. Essentially, they're similar to cursed spirits, but they possess a physical form. Anyway, in 2086, around 50,000 Simurians arrived above Nevada seeking refuge on Earth. Maru, one of the Simurians and the adopted son of Dura, was sent to inspect humanity. Yuka and Tsurugi were assigned to work with him, and after their first mission, Maru began growing closer to both of them. In early October, Cross, the younger twin brother of Maru, disguised himself in order to take Maru's place and spend time with the twins. During this time, it was also revealed that Yuka only had about 6 months left to live because of a tumor. In November, a takoyaki party was planned as part of a cultural exchange. That same month, humans planned the Great Purification Ritual in Tokyo, which was basically a massive-scale extermination of cursed spirits. Now, the problem was that at this point, the Simurians realized that cursed spirits looked a lot like Kalyans, and considering that the Kalyans are sacred beasts on their planet, they didn't really like this, so their ritual had to be halted. After that, the Simurians demanded that Japan stop exorcising cursed spirits, and the sorcerers complied, well, for about a month. You see, after a month, the humans secretly resumed exorcising cursed spirits in December, causing tensions to rise again. After both sides failed to reach a deal regarding the cursed spirits, the Simurians eventually invoked a 𝐷𝗲𝗏-style duel, which was pretty much a tradition where both sides chose their champion to represent them. Initially, humans wanted Yuji Itadori to represent them. However, they couldn't get into contact with him, so they decided to choose Yuka as their champion, while Dabura represented the Simurians. On January 14th, 2087, despite being gravely weakened, Yuka engaged in a duel against Dabura and summoned Maharaga to fight him. Maharaga quickly adapted to Dabura's attacks and started overwhelming him, but the situation soon changed once Dabura decided to go all out. Elsewhere, the Jujutsu sorcerers prepared to deal with the cursed spirits escaping Tokyo, but that plan was interrupted by the Simurians. Right when another clash was about to begin, a familiar figure appeared and stopped everyone. Yep, Yuji finally returned. From there, Yuji worked with Maru on a plan to create harmony between humanity and the Simurians. To do that, they entered the Pathway of Souls, which is a place between life and death, where Maru intended to use Mahito's idol transfiguration as part of the ritual of harmony. The goal was to alter how souls pass into the world, so fewer cursed spirits would be born and the conflict between both sides could eventually be resolved. There, Yuji Ara farmed a bit and easily one-shot Mahito. Eventually, the ritual succeeded and the cursed spirits in Tokyo disappeared. Also, both Yuka and Tsurugi woke up cured.
From there, the ending is mostly peaceful. Yuji reunites with Nobara to talk about how to handle things going forward, while the Cimmerians and Jujutsu sorcerers share a hopeful final scene together. And that's it! The entire Jujutsu Kaisen timeline explained. However, if you still want to watch more JJK content, you can click on this video where I explained all 16 final forms in Jujutsu Kaisen. Go on, click it.